I'll hand over the house to my parents. If you resist, I'll divorce you. I wonder what this person was talking about. Daniel was smiling as he spoke to me, who was sunk in sorrow after losing my mother. Hearing him, I realized that my love for him had vanished. Instead, anger towards him and my in-laws welled up in me. Fine, but you'll regret it. Shut up. Fools should keep quiet. He didn't seem to take my words seriously, handing me the completed divorce papers while laughing. If he was serious, I needed to show my seriousness too. I would make him regret underestimating me. Smirking, I took the divorce papers and left the house. I headed to my uncle's house. The next day, I went with my uncle to the luxurious house occupied by my in-laws. Where were you yesterday? It's not okay for a maid to just disappear. Maid? Who are you talking about? Who else but you? You're the wife. Actually, we're already legally divorced. Daniel was confused by my reply. Seeing this, my uncle started to speak. I have some legal advice to seek about this matter. I, Gina Simpson, am a 35-year-old part-time housewife. I don't have a father. He died in an accident when I was young. So, my mother raised me alone. She had a talent for business and built a large company by herself. Because I'm a single mother, I don't want you to suffer financially, Gina. I have to live long for both you and your father. Mother always said that, dedicating herself to her business. As a result, there were no financial worries. Sis, Gina, I came to see you since I'm in the area for work. Oh, thank you for your hard work even on your day off. Yes. Oh, where's that heavy package you said was hard to carry? I'll help with that too. Additionally, my uncle, my mother's brother, supported us despite his busy work. However, our family had rules. Take care of yourself. Earn what you want through your own efforts. Mom, I want something, so can I get a part-time job? Of course, what do you want? There's a book I need for a qualification I want to take in the future. Oh, Gina, you're really admirable. Therefore, I always spared no effort. My mother always praised me for that. As a result, I eventually played an important role at the company. I fell for you the first time I met you, and I was increasingly drawn to your hardworking nature. I met my husband, Daniel, at the company. He persistently approached me, and I was gradually drawn to his passionate attitude, leading to marriage. We don't have children yet and lead a typical life. One day, work meetings ran late, and I came home after working overtime. Finally back? I'm hungry, so hurry up and serve dinner. When I arrived home, Daniel was lounging on the sofa with his smartphone, not even greeting me. Sighing in frustration at his attitude, I said, I messaged you that I'd be late today, so you should eat first, right? Oh, did you? I sent it, and you even replied, got it. Then hurry up with dinner. Saying that, he laid himself back on the sofa as usual. Unlike me, he doesn't hold a special position. He's a typical employee. That's why I wanted him to help with the housework, but he always ignored it. He leaves his clothes on the floor and doesn't clean up after meals. He used to be considerate and help with housework in the early days of our marriage. Hey, I just returned tired from work. Compared to that, you're just relaxing on the sofa, so at least prepare your own meal. Stop nagging. You're just a failure at infertility treatment. I felt outraged by his words. It's true we don't have children, but it's not solely my fault. We both have difficulty conceiving. That's the same for you. It's your fault. We don't have kids because your body is faulty. Yet, Daniel blames everything on me. He probably feels his pride hurt as I hold a position while his career stagnates. In other words, jealousy and spite. That's a separate issue. What about you, who does neither housework nor work properly? What? Are you mocking me? That day, we had a big fight. Angry, Daniel went to bed without eating anything. His attitude confused me. Considering all my efforts, I couldn't understand Daniel's behavior. What should I do? While heating up the food in the fridge, I muttered to myself, The next morning, on a rare day off with no plans, I woke up a bit later than usual. Daniel. He's not here. I couldn't see Daniel, who usually sleeps until noon. He must have gone to his parents' house. With that thought, I got ready and headed to the hospital. Mom, hello. Oh, Gina. You're off today? Yes. How are you feeling? Well, as usual. My mother collapsed at work around that time and was then hospitalized. Knowing her, she must have felt ill before collapsing but continued to work, leading to her current state. Even then, she was working on her laptop in her hospital bed despite not feeling well. How about you? No problems. I smiled in response to her worried question. I didn't want to worry her further. By the way, the maple trees near the company are beautiful again this year. I took some photos. Want to see? Yes, show me. Changing the topic, I showed her the pictures. After a pleasant conversation with her, I left the hospital. I have a message from my mother-in-law. Checking my phone, there was a message from Daniel's mother. Reluctantly, I decided to respond. It's about time. Where have you been? I was at my mother's hospital. What? Prioritizing your own parent over your husband is unacceptable. I felt irritated by the shouting voice coming from the phone. As expected, Daniel had gone to his parents' house. Her complaints continued. Why do you trouble Daniel? As a wife, you should respect your husband. Are you getting carried away because of your position? And you don't even have children due to infertility. I wish he would become independent. Daniel always runs quickly to his parents' protection. It's really pathetic. Thinking this, I responded vaguely and ended the call. What's wrong, Gina? You look upset. Oh, uncle. Are you here to visit mom too? Something like that. My uncle, who had been watching from somewhere, approached me. Behind him stood a man. Uncle, is that gentleman a work acquaintance? Yes, he might be involved in something that affects you, so I'll introduce you. I'm James Miller. Pleased to meet you. He handed me his business card and I gave him mine. Then my uncle said, I have something to discuss with my niece, so could you go ahead to the hospital? What was the call about? It was from my mother-in-law. I explained the situation with a wry smile. Daniel neglects housework and runs to his parents' house at the slightest conflict. And his mother defends him and blames me for being infertile. Hearing my story, my uncle looked troubled. I want to keep this from mom. I don't want to worry her more. Understood. My uncle nodded, looking somewhat distressed, and I parted ways with him. Then it happened shortly after. What, Mom? When I rushed to the hospital after hearing my mother's condition had worsened, she had already passed away. Stunned by the sudden loss, I stood there in a daze. Unable to think of anything, my uncle supported me and even arranged the funeral. We did it. Now the inheritance is ours. Really? She was the CEO of a major company, right? How many millions in inheritance is there, I wonder? The wife's inheritance belongs to the husband's family. We can say goodbye to that shabby house. The laughter, inappropriate for the occasion, snapped me back to reality. I heard Daniel and his parents laughing and talking loudly at the funeral. Everyone, please leave. My uncle, seeing me frozen and disturbed by their words, kicked them out of the funeral. Though Daniel and his parents tried to resist, they left the funeral venue, criticizing my uncle, under the cold stares of those around. Gina, if you ever want to cut ties with them, just let me know. Thank you. Afterward, unable to bring myself to return to Daniel's house, I decided to stay in my mother's grand mansion for a while. The house, built with love by my mother, was filled with many memories. Planting flowers in the garden for my mother's comfort, playing hide and seek in this large house on weekends. Even though my mother was busy with work, she always valued our time together. Being in the house reminds me of such happy days. Feel free to use this house when I'm gone. My mother had said that during her lifetime. As I considered making the house my own, the doorbell rang. It could be my uncle, worried and coming to check on me. Since my childhood, my uncle often visited without notice, so I opened the front door. So you were here after all, Daniel. And, wow, what a fabulous house. Wait a minute. The unexpected visitors were Daniel and his parents. Confused by their unanticipated arrival, they entered the mansion. They even brought moving boxes, one after another being brought inside. What are you doing? This is my mother's house. But your mother is gone now. Right now, this is my house. No, this house is in my parents' name. I was shocked by his words. Why was my mother's inheritance in his parents' name? A lawyer friend of ours changed the ownership. What? How could you do this without permission? Quiet down. A wife's belongings belong to her husband's family. Don't worry, you can work here as a maid. Daniel said this mockingly. I'll hand over the house to my parents. If you resist, I'll divorce you. Daniel could say such things without a care. He said this to me, who was mourning my only mother, with a laughter. And then, I realized I no longer felt any love for him. Instead, anger towards Daniel and his parents welled up in me. Fine, but you'll regret it. Quiet, fool. He seemed not to take my words seriously, handing me the completed divorce papers with a laugh. If he was serious, then it was time for me to be serious too. I needed to make him regret underestimating me. Smiling, I took the divorce papers and left the house. My destination was my uncle's house. What an insult. I've been taken for a fool. I immediately consulted my uncle, who is a lawyer. Changing ownership like that is not allowed legally. It's an impossible act. Yet, he had a lawyer do such a thing. Don't worry, I'll protect your mother's house. And you, Gina. That's what my uncle told me. We immediately took action. My sorrow over losing my mother had completely turned into anger towards them. I could never forgive that unreasonable family. The next day, I went with my uncle to the mansion they were occupying. Where were you yesterday? It's not okay for a maid to just disappear. Maid? Who are you talking about? Who else but you, the wife? Actually, we're already legally divorced, I said calmly, and Daniel's expression froze in shock. He was at a loss for words, unable to believe it. Then my uncle spoke. I have something to discuss with you as a lawyer. My uncle looked at Daniel coldly. I had quickly filled out the divorce papers I received the day before and completed the legal procedures. Informing Daniel of this fact, he was clearly bewildered. His face showed an inability to comprehend the situation. What's happening? Daniel's parents asked, increasing the tension. My uncle calmly intervened to resolve the situation. His voice was composed, carrying the weight of a lawyer. We need to discuss this situation from a legal perspective, he said, gazing intently at Daniel. My uncle explained that I was the legal owner of the house and spoke in detail about the illegality of changing the ownership. Changing the ownership of this house illegally is prohibited by law. Daniel's parents tried to argue. That was done by a lawyer we know. So it can't be illegal. Could you please give me the name of the lawyer? This case may constitute a clear case of forgery of private documents. My uncle's question carried a legal seriousness. At this moment, Daniel lashed out at me. What are you doing on your own? I responded calmly. The one who started this without permission is you, isn't it? I haven't done anything against the law. I can call the police. Daniel had nothing to reply and remained silent. His silence made me understand why he couldn't succeed in his career. That infertile woman. His words were weak. I confidently retorted. You say that, but I think I'm better off than you. In reality, I still have a chance to conceive. Whereas I have a hope of pregnancy through treatment, Daniel has been told by doctors that it's difficult for him to have children. I still have a chance to have children, but you don't. You can't have children, can you? Such audacity. You have insulted the precious memories I had with my dear mother, and I will never forgive that. As I looked straight into Daniel's eyes, he hung his head. My uncle had also demanded silence from his parents. Leave this house immediately, and be prepared for what's to come. Under our cold gaze, they trembled. They had trampled on the precious home of my mother and me, and they needed to pay the price. My sister knew about the situation you were in. It seemed my mother had sensed my troubles and asked my uncle to help me. She probably won't tell me anything to avoid worrying me, so please help her in my stead. I heard these words from my uncle. It turned out that after my mother's death, Daniel had been bragging about getting his hands on the inheritance. My mother had prepared a will to protect her estate, and that will had been entrusted to James Miller, the lawyer introduced by my uncle. This will clearly states everything. All the inheritance is left to Gina, and she is free to use the mansion as she wishes. That was what was written in the will kept by James. Seeing this, Daniel was shocked and started clinging to me. Please, I've already sold our house and even let go of my parents' home. Why would you do such a thing? Well, actually, it was revealed that Daniel had accumulated a huge debt without my knowledge. He had been frequently visiting nightclubs and spending lavishly while I was busy working. To repay that debt, he had even sold his own house and his parents' home. That's your problem. But Gina, we are husband and wife, right? We are no longer a couple. You have two choices: face charges for forgery or buy the mansion for $3 million. That's impossible. Daniel had just managed to pay off his debts by selling his house and certainly couldn't afford $3 million. His parents were also unable to come up with that amount. Seeing this, I decided to file a police report. Moreover, when I returned to the mansion, I noticed some items were missing. My precious mementos are gone. What is the meaning of this? I confronted Daniel, who replied, "It's not my fault. Mom was planning to sell everything she didn't like." Apparently, his parents had been selling things without my knowledge. This was another case to add to the lawsuit. As a result, Daniel and his parents ended up with massive debts. Of course, they were completely cut off from the company I managed, now led by me, following my mother's footsteps. Amidst all this, Daniel's father shouted, "Bring out that damn daughter-in-law," as he stormed into the company alone. He demanded the withdrawal of the police report and made a scene, eventually being taken away by the police. My uncle and I could only chuckle at this hopeless parent and child. We found out who that lawyer is. He turned out to be Daniel's cousin. Daniel had tried to make me the villain and had forced his cousin to cooperate by exploiting his weaknesses. The cousin, having lost his lawyer license due to the fiasco, harbored resentment against Daniel's family, spreading the word that he had been deceived, leading to their isolation. As a result, I heard Daniel's family was then in a whirlwind of chaos. Seems like a family with a lot of problems. I certainly think so. If they both fail by pulling each other down, that's fine by me. I have no more sympathy for them. So, what are you planning to do with the mansion? Yes, I've decided to sell it. The mansion certainly held dear memories of my mother, but it had been tarnished by Daniel's family. Besides, it was too big for me to live in alone. My uncle said this, supporting my decision. And so, I proceeded with the sale of the mansion. Fortunately, a wealthy elderly couple expressed their desire to buy it immediately. I etched the memories of my mother in my heart and decided to leave the mansion. My new life would be in a condo close to the company. Gina. Oh, James. I heard from a colleague and ended up coming here. As I was leaving the office, there stood James. He had been a great help in investigating Daniel's family and gathering evidence. Gradually, we grew closer, influenced by my uncle calling us casually. "Would you like to have some coffee together?" "Of course, let's go," I agreed, and we headed to a nearby cafe. "I'm truly grateful for all the help you've given me, including with my mother's situation." "No, I wanted to be of help to you, Gina. James said, looking at me earnestly. His sudden gaze stirred my heart, but I met his eyes. Actually, I have feelings for you, Gina. Really? I know you just finished with Daniel, and you might not have sorted out your feelings yet, but please consider it when you're ready. While saying this, he handed me his contact information. I had been aware of his feelings for a while but never saw him in that light. However, now his feelings resonated with me. I'm serious about this. When he said this, blushing, I found him endearing. I began to think that maybe starting life anew with someone wasn't such a bad idea. Later, Daniel's parents mistook that I was still in the mansion and tried to enter without permission. But the mansion had already been sold to new owners, and they were quickly caught by the advanced security system. Eventually, they received a prison sentence due to their criminal record. Help me, Gina. I was shocked by the sudden contact from Daniel. I had forgotten to block his number. Such a foolish oversight. Apparently, only Daniel's parents were caught for the break-in, and Daniel had escaped by seeking help elsewhere. However, Daniel was burdened with an overwhelming debt. But we were once married. I'm appalled at my lack of judgment. I've learned not to be swayed by you. It's time to move on to a new path. Anything else? Gina, let's get back together. Sorry, but that's impossible. Goodbye. After hanging up, I made sure to block Daniel's number. Is everything finished? Yes, it's all over now. Afterward, I decided to respond to James's feelings. Now, we are engaged. My uncle encouraged me, saying, he's truly sincere. Hey, James, I have difficulty conceiving and considering my age. Gina, having you is all that matters to me. Family isn't just about blood relations. His words made me believe that together, we could build a happy family. Then, I talked to my uncle about everything, the situation with Daniel, my relationship with James, and about children. I see. If that's your decision, then it's good. Why do you always support me, uncle? That's because of a promise with your father. My uncle explained that my father and he were close friends and always cared for our family. That's why I decided to protect you. I see. You're like a daughter to me, my uncle said with a smile, and I smiled genuinely. I was truly grateful to have him on my side. Be happy. Yes, I definitely will. I vowed to build a happy future, honoring this promise with my uncle. I didn't want to make him worry about me anymore. Afterward, I married James and enjoyed a happy life together. We decided to adopt a child. This child is truly my grandchild, said my uncle, showing warm affection for the child. I am pouring the same love into my child that I received from my mother. He's our child. We'll be okay no matter what happens. Yes, there may be challenges in life ahead, but together, we will surely overcome them. I promise to pass on the lessons I learned from my mother, be a supportive figure like my uncle, and convey pure emotions to my child like James.